Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. So in this video we're gonna work on a really cool transition between images, like as we scroll through the page. So I have this cute kitten here, and as I started scrolling you'll see that I'll have this kind of like cool transition happening, and now I have this other cute kitten. So this is gonna be really fun. There's a lot of Fragment shader coding and also JavaScript stuff in this video, so I hope you guys watch the video and enjoy it. And yeah, let's get started. Alright, so take a quick look at our starter code. I'm using a Webpack boilerplate. You feel free to use whatever you want. You could use any bundling or just like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files. I have my HTML template here. I'm using Pog. You can use just simple HTML. What we need to have in common is a Three.js div element with class of Three.js, and another one with Three.js canvas container. This is where like I plan to have the scrolling happen, and then the canvas container is where I have my Three.js scene and anything related to that. As for the styling, all I have is just giving enough space in my Three.js div, 200 viewport height, so that I can scroll, and then the effect that we are trying to achieve, that will be achieved using scroll here. And also for my canvas container, this is just a Three.js simple canvas covering the whole viewport, and then setting it as fixed, so it's always there as we scroll, so nothing special there. As for JavaScript file, I'm grabbing that canvas element here, and then calculating width and height of it. I have my scene, Three.js scene. This time for camera, I'm using an orthographic camera, and if you look at the Three.js documentation, it's basically used when you want the object size in the rendered image to stay constant regardless of its distance from the camera. And for what we're doing, this is a perfect scenario. I'm not using perspective camera because I don't really need to have that perspective aspect of a camera for this. And all we need to know here, we need to actually go ahead and add that camera to our scene. And then I have my renderer and size and everything for the renderer, and finally just adding that, appending that to my canvas. And nothing special for my update. I have my renderer here, and everything else is what we've used for my resize event. So these are the things that you can basically modify based on the bundling or whatever format that you're using for this code. So that's about it. Let's get started with the actual code right now. Okay, so at this stage, this is what we have. If you go to like your Three.js endpoint here on localhost, you should just see like this screen over here. I have assigned a black the background to the body, so that's why you see black here. And then now we're gonna start working on this index.js. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to basically call my function that I'm adding all the textures, the geometry, and everything that mostly the things that we are doing for Three.js. So this is what I'm calling in my constructor. And then next thing, I'm going to just start defining this function. I need to have a texture loader using three texture loader, and then I have picked 2 images from unsplash.com, so just feel free to pick your images, but keep in mind that what I'm working on right now, later on we'll get to this, but I have picked square images, so the aspect ratio of the images are 1. I'll let you know later what you need to do if your images don't have a aspect ratio of 1, so like the width and height are not the same. But right now I'm selecting two images with square, which are square. So the next thing I need to do is to just have my plane geometry, and that's where I will be mapping my textures on. And I'm going to use a shader material because we are going to use these textures and then kind of use this scroll progress to move from one texture to another on that same plane. And also we'll get that to that a little bit later. And defining my plane over here, combining the geometry and material, and don't forget to add the plane to your scene. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna have to define these two files, basically import them here, because I'm going to have them in my shaders folder here under app. And so Fragment and vertex. Vertex is gonna be simple, nothing special. So I'm just like doing my geo position here, and very basic, just using the projection matrix, model view matrix, and then basically assigning this whole thing to my geo position. What I will need in my fragment shader is the UV coordinates, so I'm defining a varying so that I can grab the UV over here, save that as VUV, and then I'll have access to that VUV in my fragment shader. Before we get to our fragment shader file, we need to do a little bit of more work in our index.js. What we are missing right now is the scroll progress that we need to get from JavaScript and then send it to our fragment file, because we will be using the progress, the scroll progress that we make in the page to switch between these two textures. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use a GreenSock GSAP library for that. I'm gonna use ScrollTrigger. I've already installed the library, so I need to import it over here, and then I'm gonna import the ScrollTrigger and then register that plugin over here. What I need is a variable to store the progress that we make. So in my constructor, I'm going to define that variable. The initial value is going to be 0, and then after that I can define my ScrollTrigger create function over here, basically the properties that they need. The 3.js div that I originally had defined in my HTML file, which basically over here, right here, that's where I will be scrolling. And if you remember, I had a 200 viewport height, so that is scrollable. Start and end of the scroll, pretty normal. Top, that's top of viewport and top of this div, and the end is gonna be bottom and bottom. And I do need this on update function, and that is going to be used to update the scroll progress. So the self.progress is gonna be a number between 0 to 1, and that's exactly what I want. As I scroll through the page, I need to keep track of this scroll progress, and then I need to send this scroll progress to my fragment file, obviously. So in my uniforms, I'm going to define a scroll progress. The initial value again is going to be 0, and then in my update function, which is where I'm doing the request animation frame on the window element, here I will just make sure to add to update the use scroll progress value as we scroll through the page, and that's gonna be the plane material uniforms use scroll progress, the value for that, and that's gonna be equal to this scroll that we defined, and we keep updating that as we scroll over here. So that's all we need for now over here, and now we can go and get started with the fragment file. Alright, so in my fragment GLSL file, I have already imported like the uniforms, the uTexture1, uTexture2, and the scroll progress. And I also have access to VUV. If you remember in the vertex file, I passed my UV as VUV to my fragment file, and I'm receiving it here using varying. And what I'm doing is just simple texture 2D. I'm grabbing the two textures and I kind of like mapping them on the plane over here using the UV coordinates. And for my frag color over here, I'm gonna use a mix function. When I have my scroll at the bottom, like the scroll progress is equal to 1, remember this is gonna be 0 to 1 because that's what we will be getting from the ScrollTrigger update function here, and that's what we're passing. So this is gonna be between 0 and 1, which what's the range that we need for this mix function. Basically, when I have 0, I'm gonna see the first image, and when I have 1, I'll see the second image, I believe. And so if we save this over here and go back to 3JS, so this is my first image. I scroll, and right now it's just going to be kind of like a fade out, fade in, and also nothing like more than that. The other thing that I know you guys are also seeing here is that, as you remember, I said the images that I've picked are both square images, but right now my viewport is like 1430 by 975, so it's not square and it's being stretched. The images are being stretched, both of them. As I scroll, you can see like this one is also stretched, and we need to fix that. So to fix that, I can go back to my index.js file, and I need to kind of do a little bit of fix based on the our viewport aspect ratio. So the thing that I need to do is to scale my object, my plane, based on the aspect ratio of the viewport, and I'm gonna do it right here after I'm adding, like defining my plane over here. What I need to do is to check if the width of my viewport, or it's like the 3JS scene, the width that we have here, the canvas width, if it's less than height, that means I need to scale the X value of the plane, and that's gonna be height over width. The Y and Z are gonna be the same. If the width is greater than height, then I need to scale my Y value, which is like basically a vertical axis. So this time it's gonna be width over height for my Y. X and Z are gonna be the same. So if I do that over here and we go back, see like how stretched it looked, kinda. This is gonna act like a cover object fit for like an image element. So it's kind of like not stretching it, but it might like zoom in or zoom out, kind of like the cover effect that we have in image elements. So if I scroll in now, that's what we see here. Now there is still a problem as I do like the resize the screen. It's still like kind of stretching and shrinking the image, which is definitely not what we want. And all we need to do is actually do the same thing in our resize function. So this is my resize function, and I will add exactly the same thing over here. So once we resize the window, this aspect ratio is also being calculated, and then kind of like given a cover effect still to our image as we grow and shrink the viewport. So you can see like this is kind of like a cover effect that I talked about in an actual image. Now if I start scrolling, you see the change from one image to another, and still when I do the resizing, we have that effect over here. Best case is when we have like 975 by 975. That's like our square, which is this how this image actually exactly looks like when I like got it from unsplash.com. So you can see the transition really well here, but still we do have like the effect that we want in larger screens as well, because you know, like we don't have really square screens out there, or maybe we do, I don't know. Anyways, so this is what we needed to do to fix the aspect ratio of the images. Now this is just a basic transition from one to another. We could have probably done this using like just maybe like GSAP library and two actual image elements in our HTML file. No need for Three.js and everything that we've done so far. But we are gonna kind of like explore with this and see all the different things that we can do now that we have used the Three.js and shaders here basically. So let's get to that. Now let's play around a little bit with this. What this, like these two lines, image 1 and image 2 are actually exactly equivalent of what you have here. So what I'm doing right now is kind of dissecting, like separating X and Y of the UV and just like putting them as vec2 elements over here. And this is going to be exactly like what we had up here. And to show you that, let's save it and go back to our local host here, our endpoint, and just if I scroll down, you can see like as I scroll down and up, we just have that fade effect and everything is still the same. The reason I kind of separated these is that now we can add that scroll progress, for example, to our UVX or UVY, and let's do that. First, I'm gonna add this U scroll progress to my first images X, and then remember for the second one you kind of have to do -1 because you want to make sure that like these don't happen, like don't appear on the plane at the same time. You could totally try and do different numbers and see how it works, but if you do U scroll progress and U scroll progress -1, it kind of will show you like a slide effect, something like that, that like one goes out of the screen and the other one comes in. And let's see how that looks like. So I'm just adding the progress to my X UVX over here, and what you probably expect is like a horizontal scroll, and that's what's happening here, but kind of like a transition you see here between the two images. So this is kind of cool. So I'm scrolling up and down, but we're seeing like a horizontal scroll. And if we do the same thing to Y instead of X, what you will see here Y, I'm doing you scroll this time to Y, and then same over here, you scroll -1 to the second one is still to the Y element. You probably guessed it, it's gonna be like a kind of like slide transition between the two, but this time it's gonna be vertically. So this is my first image, so I'm up there. As I scroll down, it's gonna like slide down my second image. And this is like really cool. You can play with these numbers, obviously. Just like as I said, I'm keeping them as -1 and the actual progress, but just make sure to play and see how it will affect your transition. We could also add kind of like this scroll progress to both X and Y, and then same thing for the second image, -1 and -1 to both of them. And this is gonna be kind of like slide from like top left to kind of bottom right, or vice versa. So as you can see, this is my first image. I'm scrolling down and you see like the other one is coming kind of from top right over here, and then when I scroll up, we have the reverse of that happening. So this is also really cool, and we can do a lot more. Let's see. Another thing we can do is kind of like mess up this, play with this scroll progress in here in our mix function. So what we could do is actually like define another float here, like we call it progress, whatever you want to call it. And like I'm just multiplying 6 by that u scroll progress, and then make sure to clamp it between 0 and 1, because you need to have between 0 and 1 numbers here in the mix function over here. So we're clamping it, and then also definitely replace that over here with what you define. So this is just like gonna happen a little bit faster. You'd see like if I scroll down, because I'm multiplying my progress by 6, so we'll go there. There is like a little bit of fading, like disappearing, and then like appears, the next one appears. So that's how different it is between this one and before, because like previously these two kind of like were connected, and then you could see like a transition fragment, like color transition between the two as well. But right now it's just going a blank screen, and the second one comes in. You can obviously keep playing with this progress float number value here. You can do like this with the UVs again, and that's what I'm doing here. Just like playing the UVs with the UVs, and then let's see what happens this time. Let's refresh, and it's probably not too much like visible there, but we do have like this transition. If you look really closely, it's something like it's coming like this white space area is coming from this top left to bottom right, and then kind of the transition happens at the end once that like gets all the way to the bottom right. So you could totally like replace these textures with just simple colors. So you could have like vec4 color 1, you would have like a red color, and then with the second one we can do that. Let's see, if I do image 1 equals to vec4, I'll do like a red color 1 0 0, and then another one for alpha here, and then I could do like image 2 over here. I could have like blue, so this one would be 0, this third one would be 1, and I have all the digits right here. Hopefully, let's save it out and see, like this is basically just the color red and blue going like the transition happening between these two planes. So I have my blue red color here, the first one, and then as I scroll you see like it's coming from up. There is this like here from to here, there you can see like something like is happening in that between, and then I go all the way to my blue section. So that's also like you could start like playing with the colors first and then test that on your images at the end, but I just prefer to do the image thing from the beginning. And so you can keep playing, but there are also a couple of online resources that I'm gonna show you right now. There's this article from Yuri. He's like a great 3JS guy, and you probably know him. He has his YouTube channel, but this article he's explaining how he can how you can achieve this kind of effect. It's a little bit incomplete, so I tried to make sense of it, but I couldn't really figure out exactly how it's happening, because like he only explains a little bit, not everything. And so there is another this one is a React thing that someone else has done, and that actually has a code. This is also a GitHub repo. I'll share the links of both these two resources. This one actually kinda is an addition to this. Another someone else actually kinda like went ahead and implemented that, so there is more detail in there, but what I'm gonna show you is what actually I got from that GitHub repo. It's a little bit more complicated, but what we have here is they're doing much more on the progress that's happening with the scrolling. So you'll see, like, I'll show you what they're doing in a second. So we have the progress over here, and then like they're using this similar to what I had, but actually kind of like used that progress when I was doing like this over here. But there's much more. They're like defining more variables using some sign function here, and you can like look at it. I'll put the link to this like final project, also the GitHub repo, in the description box below, so you can check that out as well. And then finally, I believe, yeah, that's that. So I need to kind of comment this one out, and yeah, let's see if I save it. So there's a lot happening between like defining this progress and actually using the texture 2D to get our two images. So you'll see it's very close to the effect that Yuri was showing here, and it's basically from this website, I believe, right here. So yeah, when you scroll here, you can see like there's a kind of cool transition, and then like what we are also achieving here with our code here that I got from that GitHub repo over here is also very close to that. So let's take a look at it. As I start scrolling, so this is my first image, I start scrolling down, you see like this kind of transition happening, and then I have this second image. So yeah, this is also really cool. Again, I'll put the links in the description box below, but this final thing is also I kind of like it, and you can add more images and play with this. Definitely try to make sense of all that's happening here, but for this video, I think that's all that I wanted to share with you guys. Hope you liked it. Make sure to hit the like button below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and also turn the notification bell on. Thanks a lot everyone for your support and watching this video, and I'll see you guys soon.